his air down a little bit. Got the old fan going today. A little warm out. What's happening, y'all? Shit. Let's see here if I unplug that for a second. Plug that back in. I gotta trying to keep my phone working. I didn't charge it today. Well, I mean, I did earlier in the day, but I had it playing a videos plural. This afternoon it ran down on me. What's happening, y'all? Yeah, I'm getting unpredictable on my live feeds here. I hadn't planned on doing one today. You got to work tonight. Won't be on long. Okay, well that's cool. I'm on my way home anyway, you know. As usual, as per usual. I do these videos on my way home, of course. You know that already. Anyway, I didn't do one yesterday. I don't know why. I don't remember. I know I was tired yesterday because I worked 10 hours yesterday. I'm sorry. No, I only worked 9 hours yesterday. I fibbed. I didn't mean to. Yeah. What are you up to today besides working? Look at there. You're my top fan, Ashley. Isn't that cool? It's time for a haircut. Get this shit out of my face. It's been a while since I've had one. It's probably been 6 months or so. Nada, yeah. You know, I worked today. Well, I didn't really work. I kind of hung out, waited for some jobs to get done. Excuse me. I kind of hung out at the shop, waited for work to get done today to come over to me. Unfortunately, like the first part of the day, I was pretty much just cleaning up my email and checking to see how people were doing on their jobs, because I really wasn't doing a whole lot on mine. Yep. That happens from time to time, you know. We're slow right now. We should be getting busy next week, though, and I can start working, 10-hour days. I only worked 9 today. I got to go home and let my dog out. His eyes are probably turning yellow by now. Sorry about that. Oh, Ahmed, what's up? What you doing? I'm driving home, Ahmed. What are you doing? Good to see you in there. I got another viewer. I got 3 people on right now, which is pretty cool. I like it when I get people in there watching me, and I can interact with people a little bit. Where are you from, Ahmed? Don't mind me asking. Anyway, so yeah, I only worked 9 hours today, simply because tomorrow I'm going to be really busy tomorrow. They got some vehicles they got finishing up, and they should get them rolling to me. Not getting ready to sleep. Oh, you're in Kurdistan, Iraq, huh? Wow. Well, I hope you're having a good evening over there in Iraq. What time is it there? Let's see, it's 3:45 here. What is it about? Let's see, 10:15 or so, 10:45 or so there? Something like that. Oh, so it's midnight there, huh? Or past midnight. Wow. Okay. I always get kind of mixed up and confused, with the time zones and the difference in the time. I know that London is like 6 hours from where I am. Well, maybe it's 7 because I think it's 6 hours from the East Coast of the United States. So I got a feeling that that extra hour. See, I'm an hour ahead of the East Coast, or I'm sorry, hour behind the East Coast. So right now on the East Coast, it's 2:45 and it's 3:45 here. But I do know that in London, it's 6 hours difference. I think Germany's like 7 hours difference. Tomorrow, got to get up early for work. Can't sleep. Yeah, I have those nights too. You know, I get up at 5 a.m. Well, 5:30. I leave the house, so I'm up a little bit before 5 a.m. You know, take a shower and stuff like that. I have to be at work at 6. So I know how it is to, you know, have to go to work and then not be able to sleep. Of course, now my body sometimes just says, "Hey, man, you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and my eyes open. You know, it's almost like I've gotten enough rest, even though I know I haven't." You know what I mean? It makes for an interesting night when I got stuff on my mind, and you know, you get that feeling that, you know, you're trying to sleep and you want to look at your watch to see what time it is, but you're afraid that if it's too early, you know, then you struggle with trying to go back to sleep. You know, I have that sometimes. I get insomnia real bad. But I've done pretty good here the last couple. Well, usually on the weekends, I sleep all the way through the night. I guess that's just like the difference between the weekend and the weekday. You know, where you're anticipating work, you're anticipating your schedule. You want to get more sleep, but then you're afraid if you go back to sleep, then you're going to wake up groggy, the whole 9 yards. What do I do for work? I'm a quality control technician at a company that builds commercial vehicles. So basically, we get stripped down vans and trucks from the General Motors plant, vans and trucks, the division over there, and we have commercial companies that most of the vehicles that we build are built to order. So like we have a commercial company, and whatever their needs are, whether it be, you know, like shelving or radios or GPS systems or lighting or whatever, the company that I work for gets these stripped down vans and trucks, and we install equipment in those vans according to what the commercial company needs. So we do all kinds of different applications. We do they're fleet vehicles, so we do a lot of them, you know, big orders at one time. And basically my job is that when the technicians get finished installing all the equipment, whether it be shelving or inverters or GPS systems or lighting or backup sensors, it's my job to look at them to make sure that they're good, everything works, all the bolts and nuts are tight, you know, that the batteries are good, there's no check engine lights or anything like that. And then I take photos with a tablet, you know, just for verification, you know, of like decals and things like that, placement of decals. And then I do a lot of computer work. I work on a program where I upload the photos from my tablet into what they call a hub system. And basically that you know, that hub system tells you everything you need to know about that vehicle. So then you know, you also include the photos for the customer and for the contractors, and things like that. So it's a pretty lucrative job. It has to do with infrastructure, and it's pretty good as far as your job security goes. You know, as long as commercial companies need vehicles to, you know, to be in their fleets and put butts in the seats so they can go out and do jobs, that pretty much guarantees that I have a job. So it's pretty, I've been there 9 years. You know, I started out as a technician. I was one of the guys that actually installed the equipment in the trucks. And after I was there about a year and a half, they decided that they needed an inspector full time, because the guy that was inspecting was a supervisor. And at that time, you know, the shop that I work in had just opened, you know, 6 months before that. So they didn't have really what you call an inspector full time. So that's why they did that. They made me the inspector. And I guess that's probably because I asked a lot of questions, you know, about measurements and, you know, things like that, specifics of the, you know, each job on the work orders. Basically, these work orders are just detailed instructions. So you do before and after vans, for vans. Yes, I do. Well, I don't build the vans. They come stock or stripped down from the GM plant, General Motors, and they're shipped to us by a truck, semi trucks, and you know, they come to us according to what order the work orders are and where they fit on the schedule. We have a schedule we have to keep, and depending on the schedule, depends on, you know, like when the technician gets them, when the trucks are shipped to us, and then when we ship them out after they're done. But I don't really look at these vehicles too much beforehand, unless, you know, like a technician comes to me and says, "Hey Jim, we got a problem. You know, this truck's damaged." Then I take photos of it, you know, before I start the job, before they start anyway. And then, you know, a lot of times we won't even work on them first. We'll send them out, you know, like to dealerships and body shops and stuff. Most of the time, the issues that we have are body damage that happens during shipping or during the storage, you know, at the GM plant. I guess they got a bunch of wannabe race car drivers out there, so sometimes they come to us a little banged up, and then of course we have to send them out and get them fixed. But generally, we have a crew of or drivers. We call them porters, or drivers, or traffic. There's actually a few different terms we use. So these guys' responsibility are to check the vehicles in to show that, you know, they are in our hands from the facility wherever they come from, and they're supposed to inspect them as well, like a pre-inspection, just for the damage and things like that. And that's how a lot of that stuff gets caught. Yes, I'm what they call a quality control technician, which is basically an inspector. It's just a fancy name for inspector. At work they call me Inspector Gadget, you know, because like sometimes things will come to me and they won't work, and I'll fix the wiring or whatever, you know, and make them work. You know, and I got tools that I keep in my workstation, you know, just in case that's the issue, or, you know, in case that comes up and I need to do a quick fix. Generally, you know, I don't troubleshoot a whole lot of stuff. You know, if something comes to me and it doesn't work, I have a floor supervisor that his responsibility is to, you know, relay whatever's wrong with the technician. Then the technician will go check it out. He'll see what it needs. A lot of times they'll take them from my line back over to the actual install lines and fix them, and then they'll bring them back to me. Yeah, it's a pretty cool job. Like I said, I've been there 9 years. It pays well. It pays well enough, you know, that I can survive. You know, I don't make $1 million a year, but you know, it is nice to have that security. You know, to know that I can wake up in the morning and I can go somewhere and make money. You know. Like I say, as long as there's commercial vehicles that need to be built, you know, I've got a job for the infrastructure. But the company I also, you know, that I work for is like a subsidiary or a subdivision of a bigger company. They've been around for 100 years now, and we have car dealerships and other places where they build commercial vehicles all over the United States, Canada, and stuff like that. So, you know, I work near St. Louis, Missouri. I don't know how geographically challenged you are, but I'm kind of in the west, like the middle of the United States, almost, kinda. But we have, you know, East Coast and West Coast shops all over the place. Texas, Colorado, New Jersey. There was one in Charleston, South Carolina. They closed that one not too awful long ago because they did like mostly Mercedes and BMW vans there and stuff like that. 1 million is yeah, they tax us over here, buddy. Yeah, no, I make about well, I don't want to get in too much into how much I make, but I don't make anywhere near $1 million. I make about $50,000 a year, maybe 58, between 50 and 58. I think it kind of depends on, like how much overtime I work. I try to work as much overtime as I can, but unfortunately, sometimes our workload doesn't permit that, because most of the vehicles that we work on, like these companies, they generally they do their budgeting either the final quarter of the year or the first quarter of the year. So usually between, like, I don't know, late August, early September until after the first of the year, it's generally, well, it's not busy, but it's not, I'm not slammed either. It's steady work. And then between like mid-February to March, April, May, probably like the middle of May, it's a little slow in that area too, because like I say, these vehicles are usually budgeted and purchased either in the third or fourth quarter of the year. So we don't get the orders, until after all the budgeting and everything is done. We don't anticipate. But, like some of the bigger companies, they'll order 300 vans or 300 trucks at a time. And depending on, like the build, how difficult the build is or how much equipment is involved, it really kind of depends on how long it takes us to get the order completed. But then, you have other companies, like there's a company called Glass America, who is one blanket company, but they have like 3 or 4 different builds, and we have to keep up with, the differences between the builds. And that's what the work order is all about. You don't have taxes here. Yeah. I wish we didn't have taxes, that's for sure. America, about 60%, just a rough guesstimate, about 60% of what a person makes in a year is paid in taxes. Now, we have income tax, right? And then they tax you, like, for your property. If you own property, they tax you for that. If you own automobiles, they have what they call personal property tax. They tax you for that. Then we have sales tax. You can't buy anything in stores or anything like that without paying a tax. So about 60% of what I make a year is paid in taxes. So I'm actually only working for 40% of what I work hard for every year, basically. Now, you don't feel the impact of it all at once, because of course, it's little chunks here and there. But when you add it up and you get down to brass tacks, every year you actually spend more in taxes than you can save, or that, well, at least for me, what I can save. I'm one of these people that kind of, I like to live beyond my means sometimes. So it's a struggle at times, but it's just, it all has to do with planning and budgeting, you know what I mean? But what I pay in bills and what I pay in taxes every year, I got a little chunk left, and I like to try and put it away and things like that, but it doesn't always work out that way. And my favorite saying is, you only live once, and if you got it, get it, and it'll be good. You know what I mean? So that's extracurricular spending. So and as things have gotten more expensive here over the past, like 10 years. 10 years ago, I could get a gallon of milk, or I don't know how much that would be. Let's see, a liter, I guess 2 liters is a gallon for you. I'm not really sure, but like you could get a gallon of milk here for like, $1.50, $1.75. and a gallon of milk now is like almost $4. That's American dollars. I'm not sure how much you know about our currency, but it's gotten more expensive over time. You know what I mean? So, you know, and we get less for our money now too, and that's another unfortunate thing. You know, we're already paying a high enough price, and then they take away from some of the quantity of what you are spending your money on, and then they tax you on top of it. So, you know, and in order to eat good and healthy in this country, you have to be able to spend money. But if you want junk, they make junk really cheap. You know what I mean? The unhealthy stuff. So it, you know, there's no way to even that out. You know what I mean? You either eat bad or you eat good, one of the two. You're either in good health or you're not. And that's a lot of the problem we have with like obesity in our country now, because, you know, people eat a lot of junk, and there's a lot of bad stuff in the food that's just not real healthy for you, you know. But anyway, yeah, the economy, I mean, it's stabilized, but, you know, you still, according to our Constitution, we have a Constitution here, you know, that was written by our forefathers back in the 1775, 1776. And, you know, our Constitution doesn't say anything about paying taxes on anything. And that there was no tax. When we broke free from England, there was no tax. So that was after what they call the Tea Party, the Boston Tea Party. You may be able to look at some of your history books or online and see some of that stuff, but there was no such thing as taxes. And then we had what we call the Civil War. And then after the Civil War, our country we had devastated our country so bad that we ended up borrowing money from what they call the Federal Reserve to compensate, and there was a real high interest rate on it, you know what I mean? And basically we went in debt with our country to another country. So they came up with this whole idea of paying taxes, you know, putting tax on things, and that was basically the reason that the Civil War happened anyway, because they were trying to do taxation without representation in the South. The South was mostly agriculture, and the North was mostly industrial and textiles. And so, you know, they wanted our riches here from the South, so the North invaded the South, and it was more about states' rights than anything else. But I don't really like to get into that stuff too much. 60s, yeah, your heap of whatever you make, doesn't matter how much you make or how much. Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's really disappointing sometimes, you know, like when I get my paycheck, you know, and I see one number, and then I'm like, man, you know, that's great, I can make that kind of money. But then I look at, you know, like you have what you call a net pay, and then you have what you call what is that other one? Net pay and whatever. But after taxes and, you know, fees, and because I pay like insurance and stuff too out of my checks. See, we have insurance that, you know, we have groups of insurance through our employer. So I'm paying for that out of my check before I even see it. And then of course I have a retirement account, and they take that money, you know, for me to put towards my retirement. They put it in an account for me as well, which I have control over that. But by the time I pay my taxes and everything, you know, I'm missing, like, I think I've paid, you know, like up to $700 in taxes, you know, and my expenses, you know, with insurance and my 401k and things like that. So it's really disappointing sometimes. You know, you really think you should be making, I know how your taxes work. I have a bunch of American friends who you play online with. Okay, cool, that's cool. Yep. But you know, I mean, brass tacks, getting down to, what I was talking about is that, constitutionally taxes are illegal. We shouldn't even be paying taxes because all we're doing is making politicians rich. I often wonder, what all our tax dollars, because not only do we pay, like United States tax or federal, what they call federal tax, we also pay our individual state tax. And we pay, Medicaid, we pay for what they call Social Security, which, I think by the time I retire, there's not going to be anything, such thing as Social Security. And I'm probably going to have to, live on everything I've saved all my life. But anyway, so, let's see, where was I at? Oh, okay. So like, the job that I have is good. I don't, but in America now, you really have to have two people in the household working. It used to be like back in the, 40s, 50s, 60s, and even the 70s. Mom stayed at home and took care of the house and took care of the kids, and dad went out and worked for a living because everything was more affordable back then. But unfortunately, the way things have, gotten more expensive over the years, and because of the taxes as well, now you almost have to have two people in the household working, unless of course you are somebody that makes $1 million a year and you don't live beyond your means. But even now, a lot of kids that have moved out of home, hoping to go out and try to make a life for themselves, they're having to move back home because they just can't afford it. And affordable housing seems to be one of the biggest issues. Well, a lot of people will tell you it's health care, but there's enough health care programs attached to employers, that if you're working and you can get insurance through your company on a group rate, but a lot of people here, they choose not to work. They live off the government. That's what I call government dependency, basically. They don't work. They don't want to work, and my tax dollars pay for them. So it's basically kind of a socialistic type. Even though our country's built on capitalism, with that part of it being the way it is, it's more of a socialist kind of setup. Where a man goes to the store to buy bread, he brings it home, and then somebody needs it, so he has to give it away. You know what I mean? They didn't earn it, they didn't work for it, but they get it anyway. So it's basically the same thing, and a lot of the tax dollars, I think, go to that. But I often wondered, how much it really, costs the government to supply these things for people. They don't give us numbers, they don't do reports and all that. And I mean, even our country's supposed to have a budget, you know what I mean? And right now we're like $36 trillion in debt, paying outside countries and things like that, because the US government doesn't know when is enough, you know what I mean? So they just keep right on spending, and then of course they jack the price up on things, and then they raise the taxes in order to pay for their needs and their wants. So you got I don't know, it's really just a whole big crooked thing going on. It's corrupt as hell. And they talk about slavery, and how there was slavery way back when, and people are still pissed off about that. But what a lot of people don't realize is that whether they want to believe it or not, we're still slaves to the government. We're working, to keep the country up. I mean, they're not out there, with whips and chains and, calling us the, names and things like that. But, they may as well, because we are paying for everything in this country. The citizens are, not the government, not the big corporations. The big corporations should be the ones that are taxed. The big corporations are the ones that should be paying all the money to make America work. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Personally, I'm fine with the paycheck tax because infrastructure and stuff, but other taxes. Yeah, I agree, to some point with that, because I mean, who's going to pay for, the roads to get fixed? But see, where I live, our tax dollars are supposed to take care of that for like the state highway stuff. And unfortunate enough for us, we ride around a lot of times on roads that have potholes and, big dips and things like that in them. And, these roads go, unrepaired for years, and the bad thing is they only get worse over time. If you don't fix them, they're just going to break worse. They're going to cost more money. So they don't do a lot about maintenance and things like that like they should. But I guess that's the price we pay, for having luxuries like, paved roads and things like that. Think home. Okay, well, I'm going to stop in anytime. Hey, man, if you want to, subscribe, like my channel, whatever you want to do. I'm usually on around the same time, generally Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I do drop some videos on the weekends from time to time. But feel free, like I said, man, feel free to drop in anytime. It'd be good to see you. Maybe we'll let you do a little talking next time, because I'm kind of long-winded at times. But anyway, you guys take it easy. And Ahmed, have a good night. Thanks for dropping in. I appreciate your time and your participation. And we'll talk to you guys later.